This is Sunday, January 26, 2025 at noon o'clock, 12 p.m. Now, as you might know, if you know my content, I have a small library of books that I have accrued and collected throughout the years of my life. Most of those books, when compiled together and actually viewed with their common denominators associated with my life, has brought me to this point in my life to where I have gone through a transformation of so-called awakening, and it has led to many interesting discoveries, of which I am going to show. Now, I have shown my bookshelf of go-to handy books, my resource material, if you will, in book form. And I do have quite a collection of books. Now, throughout the years, I have never really been an avid magazine collector, although back when I was a child, I did have quite the collection of comic books. But throughout the years, I have saved and held on to certain magazines for, you know, actually unknown purposes, really. And we'll start off with this right here because this topic has been part of my life since I was at least 7 years old. And because this is a topic that I am quite familiar with, and which I have put out quite a little bit of my observations and opinions and so on and so forth, my experiences, my so-called encounters that I've shared. Well, all this has great relevance to the events that's been recently occurring. And so we'll start off right here. And I want you to take notice on the cover of this magazine, what you are seeing is a dolphin. And that is also relevant because of prophecy, and I will bring it up once again how Nostradamus had, in his works, had spoken of in the end times how man and animal would begin communicating, and to a much higher degree than what we've ever seen. Okay, and the reason why we're seeing this image right here is because of the certain species of animals of which this prophecy is of relevance to. And right here, specifically, with the ocean dwelling creatures, the porpoise, the dolphins, the orcas, the whales, and the octopus, compared to certain land mammals that have to be taken into question, such as the cheetah and the platypus. And this is why we see that right there. Okay? And this is from the late 70s. Now let's continue on. This is actually even older. This is a Newsweek magazine from, yes, back then. Okay? And there's a lot of relevance to how things tend to recycle, and people call them cycles, but it's actually recycled events that take place throughout this timeline this linear timeline that we are on within a time loop scenario. Okay, and I'm going to be going into that even that much further in due time. Okay, but I want you to take notice of something else, and as far as prophecies and symbolisms and secret societies and movements. Okay, now I've been around long enough to where, man, a lot of connections are easily made today because I experienced some of those recycled events back in my younger years. Let's continue on. Such as, when I was younger, we had the eradication movement of smallpox. And when I was doing my TikTok videos, smallpox was one of the topics of my discussions, as well as the American flags, plural. And, well, we'll get into that in due time. But as far as hepatitis, this is kind of strange because, well, what came out from that movement back then, that eradication movement that I personally witnessed myself, I was around back then, of smallpox. Well, there was an adverse effect because of the technology that they used via what was known as air guns, which was an ejection device to give these inoculations against smallpox, and which it caused a slight epidemic of what you see here. Now, ironically, 50 years later after those inoculations, there was a warning that was put out, which, was very momentarily put out, that people of 50 years old, and this was a few years ago, in fact, 7 years ago, and this was, part of headline news for a millisecond. People 50 years or around that age should be checked for hepatitis. And why? Well, possibly because of long-term side effects, okay? And which, of course, I related a lot of that information from that recycling of knowledge from my experiences and encounters to where it was easily applicable a few years ago for a certain event. So let's go into archaeology to where, well, what did we learn from that said event that took place a few years ago? Well, we learned that we could connect it to, once again, more recycled events from the past. And we are in, well, so-called those end times. And it's through archaeology that many of these new evidences are coming forth. In other words, like that prophecy, in that Freemason-inspired playbook, to where it states that the earth shall reveal her secrets. Okay? And so, through all this, we do find what is claimed as hidden truths. But, once again, when it comes to truth, I prefer reality. Okay? Things that are real, not true. Because truth changes as evidence is applied. And, well, evidence has been being applied. And, hey, we're going to be finding out more about amazing biblical facts being revealed through what? Past prophecy. Okay? And no, we're not going to link it to Dead Sea Scrolls, because as I said in many videos, I like to use that King James Version because that is part of our reality, not this. And why? Well, because today we have to use forms like this in order to communicate our messages unto one another, because already, newspapers are almost nil, very few of them. And this is from when, yeah, 2013, okay? And this is how we get our information today, but in future times, because of technology and advances in artificial intelligence, we're not going to be getting information from one another. There will be only one source, and thing is, people are going to realize that that is not the source that we are to be gleaning our information for knowledge. And so that brings us into, well, we're going to be finding out more about this, right? Because now we supposedly have a disclosure person of power. Supposedly. We'll continue on. And we just might end up finding out the realities of this. Because after all, what might have been really going on at the time? And this is also something that we should be taking note of, because once again, prophecy and spiritualism and those types of realms and archaeology and we will be hearing more about these tribes and history and connections once again to this. That's our destinations today. Because our destinations today will take us once again to the past and to understand those presidents and where their power resides, and the so-called legends of the past. Because this, yes, is connected to this. And together, we will understand more about these gods and what they were after and why. Because after all, the past does dictate the future. And in my theory, everything goes round and round, right? And we have some important anniversaries that are coming up over the next few days. And we're still shooting towards supposedly a space age. Because space is the final frontier, right? Or is it? So, when it comes down to science and religion, such as the King James book Bible, And the year of the snake, the double-tongued nature of things, and the, aspirations that we've heard of, and where they want to take us. And beyond. But is that a reality? Or is there more to this than what they will ever reveal? Because after all, the powers that be have revealed very little. And that is why they depend on us for our information, our recordings and whatnot. It always starts with the public and their information. But yet, it never comes back around. The more that we can share our knowledge and our observations, encounters, experiences, and all that, one unto another, and at least get connected on that level, and maybe understand, we might have to get back to understanding other intelligences rather than understanding artificial intelligences. Because it's here on Earth that supposedly everything matters in this lifetime. This is where our lessons are to be learned. And if I'm part of all that, great. But we have to take this into consideration as well. All those cryptids. It's all connected, people. But there's also a lot of deceptions, a lot of corruption that is connected and has been. The earth shall reveal her secrets. So let us all get on the bandwagon and join in on revealing those secrets. Because our future just might depend on those secrets and the futures of those future generations. We still don't understand this world around us, yet they keep wanting us to try to, understand all this. And I think it's a major diversion tactic. Because the more that we can connect with this, I believe the more we can connect with our inner selves. Technology is not a good thing, because it is taking away this on a steady basis. And without that, we lose this higher intelligence, and we could possibly lose our own intelligence in the end run.